This is Real Sports Talk, Rumack and the Greek, featuring Billy the Greek and Stormin Norman Rumack. Brought to you by the good people at Cosa and Carpets for Life.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I'm Stormin Norman Rumack, and very pleased to welcome back my great friend, good buddy, one and only the Greek, Billy Georgitsakis. Had a few weeks off, obviously to mourn the loss and pay respect and honor to his late mother. And obviously all of us were saddened by that. And having said that, Billy, we're all very glad. And of course, our viewers, our sponsors, COSA, Standardbred Horse Racing Association of Ontario, and Nikki, the King of Carpets, all of us are very happy to have you back. And sorry that you were away on such very tough circumstances, Billy. So welcome back.
It's nice to actually, Norm, believe it or not, I don't get too excited about seeing you anymore. You know, when I first came on the air, with you, I was kind of enamored with Norm Rumack and my memories growing up and what. I don't get that excited, Norm, anymore, to be quite frank. But today I got a smile on my face. It's really nice to see you. It's really nice to just kind of put the pieces together and just move on. I'm not the only person, obviously, that's either between the two of us or anybody watching that's lost a person in their life. So again, life goes on, and it just kind of struggling for words. But I just really appreciate some of the sentiments from people that chimed in. I'm not a social media guy, believe it or not. I don't like social media. I think it's turned us into retards in some respects, excuse the language. But there is one positive, and that's like I've heard from friends that I hadn't seen in like 20, 30, 40 years, since grade 3, grade 4, right? Mm-hmm. Just wishing well wishes and condolences and stuff. And you know, as funny as it sounds, it means a lot. It means a lot just to hear another human being, whether you know them or not, whether you've laughed, cried, or whatever else you've done, or even if you've never met them in your life, just a person taking their time out to share a couple of thoughts with another human being in a time of grief is valuable. And I really, really appreciate all the kind words. I appreciate your kind words and the support. And again, right? Life goes on. So what better distraction sometimes in life than the world of sports, right? So unfortunately nowadays, for the foreseeable future, I'm distracted. I'm distracted in a different way, but distracted nonetheless. Good to be here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, very nice. And you're right. Just before we move on to all the sports, there's certainly plenty of it to discuss. You're right. That's how we all connect with one another, regardless of our job, our education, our religious background. You know, we all have the same desires and fears, and we mourn, you know, the losses of our loved ones and celebrate the great occasions for our family and friends. And we're all connected that way. And you don't have to know somebody to feel for them when they're going through a hard time. So I'm not surprised.
And funny enough, again, Norm, it's one thing to lose. It's another to lose with regret. So again, my mom lived a pretty full life. She reached 89. We'd all sign up for 89, I believe. I don't know how many of us would sign up for her 89 years. Survivor of World War II, came to a country without learning the language, built a house, built a life for herself, her husband, myself. Not easy stuff, right? Any of the people that are coming over this country in the early 60s without speaking the language, you're picking worms for a decade and a half in order to put something together for your family. So been through tough times, and again, kudos to her. Sometimes again, I'm not the best of, wasn't the best of sons, but you understand more about somebody and their plight as you mature a little bit and as you get a little older. And as I have, I've really really value and imagine the resilience it takes just to come to like a foreign country and build a life and do all the things that, you know, for guys like me, resilience is getting my fat ass off the couch to fix a sandwich at 10 o'clock. You know, I consider that resilience. But anyways, enough about that, Norm. Let's get right to it. Obviously, want to thank the good people at COSA. Want to thank Carpets for Life. Little shout out to my friends at the Fired Up Network and Angelo at Academy Billiards. All good buddies of mine. Hopefully, we can all find a way to get a little bit closer to one another as we move forward. So, where do you want to start, Norm? Obviously, around here, you know what pays the bills around here? Why don't we just jump right into the Costa Classic and keep Billy O'Donnell and all the folks at the Central Ontario Standardbred Association happy? What do you say?
That sounds 1,000% correct, sir. Let's do that.
Attaboy.
The horses are now in the hands of the starter for the seeding 7th race, the Canadian Pacing Derby, and there they go. They're off and pacing, leaving out. Bay's Fella from the outside is Runnymede Lobel, Camtastic 4 deep into the turn. Matt Scooter is 5th now between Pacers, and Indian Alert is the early trailer in 6th. Up on the outside, and here comes Camtastic now. Take a look at the rail going with them. Runnymede Lobel is 3rd in the outside. Bay's Fellows away in 4th. A length back to Matt Scooter racing in 5th. And Indian Alert is 6th up the turn. Camtastic now inherits the lead for Tom Harmer, taking the field past the opening quarter in 27 3/5. Here comes Runnymede Lobel up on the outside now, and Matt Scooter's on the move. The 3 of them across the track in front of the stand. Runnymede Lobel, Matt Scooter on the outside. Camtastic up the rail. 2 lengths back, take a look, racing in 4th. Bay's Fella is 5th, and Indian Alert is 6th. Around the turn towards the half, with the lead is Runnymede Lobel, Camtastic 2nd. Matt Scooter parked out now 3rd. Take a look is 4th. 2 lengths back to Bay's Fella in 5th. The half 55 and 4/5. They're on their way down the backside. With the lead is Runnymede Lobel. Matt Scooter driving up on the outside in 2nd. Camtastic racing in 3rd. On the move now is Bay's Fella following live cover in 4th. Take a look is 5th. Indian Alert is 6th. 3/8 remaining. Runnymede Lobel a long neck in front. Matt Scooter on the outside 2nd. Camtastic right there 3rd. Bay's Fella is 4th. In 5th, take a look. Indian Alert is 6th. Runnymede Lobel opens to a length and a half at the 3/4 and 124 and 1. Matt Scooter on the outside 2nd. Camtastic racing in 3rd. Bay's Fella is 4th. Take a look is 5th. Indian Alert is 6th. They're at the top of the lane. Runnymede Lobel. Camtastic firing up once again. On the outside, here comes Matt Scooter closing in. Runnymede Lobel. Camtastic trying to find racing room, and he finds the room. Camtastic, Matt Scooter. Take a look. Camtastic. Here they are.
The 1989
Welcome to Carpets for Life.
By now, you know the name Cosa TV, an industry leader producing unique, high-quality digital content promoting harness racing in Ontario. Features, virtual programming, live events, and more. Cosa TV has it covered. Follow our social media channels and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page to view the latest content. And if you're looking to bet your favorite Ontario track, check out hpibet.com. Cosa TV, taking Ontario racing global.
Welcome to Carpets for Life. For over 30 years, we have been servicing both residential and commercial clients in the sales and installation of custom stair runners on wall-to-wall areas. Our team prides itself in honesty with a regard of professionalism and customer satisfaction. Our many testimonials and continuous referrals is a testament of the quality of workmanship we provide. We strive to ensure a happy customer is a Carpets for Life customer.
Okay, I guess we are back now, and I'll just fill in a little gap there. First of all, we want to thank COSA again, Ontario Standardbred Horse Racing Association.
Hold on. Before you talk, why is my head so big today, man? I can't. Jesus, it's covering the whole camera, man. What happened to me? Okay, look at this, man. I used to come on and I'm moving this way, right? Yeah. I'm moving this way, and no matter which way I move, my fat head is taking up the whole shot, man. What in the blue hell happened, man? Jesus Christ. Anyways, go on.
Yeah, it could be that your smiley cheeks have expanded lately, Billy.
Oh, dear Lord.
Okay. All right, Billy, look. So, by the way, thanks again to our great sponsor. I also want to mention Nicky, the king of carpets, Habs fan, real nice guy. He's the sort of guy you'd love to have a sit at the bar and have a drink with and have a chat. Just a real good fellow. We're so pleased and honored to have Nicky along with Cosa. Nicky, the king of carpets, as our sponsors here on the Greek and Stormin on Rumack. Okay, so Billy, there's a whole potpourri. That's kind of like a nice food reference for a guy like you enjoys his food. A whole potpourri of sports topics, so no particular order. You and I have talked, I'm trying to think if it's a zillion or a trillion times about all the leagues we watch and whether the beginning of the season means our rat's ass or not. It could or it couldn't, right? So here's where I'm going with this. So with again, in a ridiculously long MLB season, and it is ridiculously long, and they say you don't even pay attention really till after the All-Star break. That's when things get going. Well, maybe that's true, or maybe not. But anyway, so does it mean absolute, like -0, a little bit, more than a little bit, that the Blue Jays get tattooed for 41 hits and 22 runs in the 3 games with St. Louis? Is just, it's like a spring training series. That's all it is. How do you see it?
You got to look at firing the manager.
Well, that was fast.
You got, here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say. And we're waiting to have Alex Campbell on out of Boston. So baseball aficionado is going to get us set up for the NCAA men's final tonight. Guy knows probably more than me, and that's saying something. So anyways, here's what I'll tell you about the Blue Jays. And again, from the beginning of the off season, from the Teoscar Hernandez trade to Gurriel to Moreno, I'm not convinced. You can make a case that the Blue Jays are better defensively. You can make a case that they have more balance. They have more veteran leadership, more I don't know what the word is when you're talking about older white guys that take the game more seriously, as opposed to Teoscar and Lourdes who were in the barrio and doing whatever it is they were doing and having too much fun for a lot of people's liking. So the team's changed, the culture's changed, but here's the one thing that stayed the same. And that's that bullpen. The reason they lost last year, again, for anybody that watches baseball, the reason you lost is not because of the home run jacket, not because of Teo Hernandez or Lourdes Gurriel or any of the following things that you got rid of in the offseason. You lost because you had a leaky bullpen that was in the bottom third of the majors in terms of guys with swing and miss stuff. In terms of guys, when you're talking about high leverage guys, you had a guy named Garcia, you got Mazes, you got Richards, you got Simper. You got guys in the back end of your bullpen, frankly, that couldn't pitch for the majority of other clubs in contention. You got Swanson, but you didn't address this. So I believe the jury's still out. Is this club better? Is this club better on paper? Is this club more likely to compete with the Yankees during the course of the next 159 games? I'm not sold yet. I'm not sold. Like, think of it this way, Norm. I'll ask you. You're just as much of a base guy. Well, you're not obviously in my league when it comes to baseball, but I'll ask you. You got rid of Hernandez and you brought in Swanson. For me, you got fleeced. I don't know how other people look at it. People keep complaining about Teoscar Hernandez's defense, but he's 30 and 100, batting 270. Guys like that don't grow on trees. You gave away Stripling, who was your second half best pitcher, right? Your best pitcher in the second half last year, and you brought in a guy, Bassett, paying him 2 times more. Do you Blue Jay fans honestly believe that Bassett's going to pitch better than Stripling did in the second half of last year? I don't think so. You got rid of Moreno, the number 3 prospect in all of baseball, right? You brought in a guy, Varsho, that for all his exploits is a 230 hitter. You brought in Kiermaier. To me, the Blue Jays got worse. And the scapegoats, unfortunately, were the Spanish guys at the end of the dugout, because there was this perception perpetrated by the media, perpetrated by you know who, your buddies, Norm Rumack. I don't want to go into detail. That the club was too Spanish, the club was too immature, the club couldn't win unless you moved some of the guys from the back end, unless you broke up the barrio, the Blue Jays couldn't win. And I didn't believe that. I don't believe that. As a matter of fact, last year's club was just fine, was good enough to win. But you can't win in playoff baseball without a half-decent bullpen. And other than Jordan Romano, there's not one guy on the Blue Jays that would be a high-leverage reliever on any of the other playoff teams that made the postseason last year. It's that simple, man. And I'm sick and tired of these guys telling us, how the Blue Jays got better in the offseason. Somebody explain to me how. Explain. Make your case. How? You got a guy again. You got a guy in Kiermaier coming off a hip surgery that played 60 games last year. You got a guy in Belt that batted 212 coming off a surgery. You got a guy in Varsho that hit 25 dingers, which is like, it's not a big deal, batting 230. How'd you get better, Norm? Tell me. I'm confused.
Well, I mean, I don't buy into we got better until we're like well past the All-Star break. Like, you know, like Billy, how many times have we talked about teams and how they look on paper? I mean, it's worth a pile of horse apples. It's a nice way.
But hold on, Norm. But we know how the Blue Jays looked last year. We know. So there was no surprises. We know the club, they broke up, right? Yeah. There was no surprises. And again, we know that club with Hernandez was down for 6 weeks. Gurriel got hurt again. We know that club. And you're telling me that this club on paper is better?
No, I'm just saying to be fair, I'm going to be totally objective, Billy. We can make some kind of definitive statement probably mid-May or beginning of June in terms of, well, looking like they barked up the wrong tree, or maybe they knew something we didn't. But I don't think we can definitively say that just now. Wouldn't you?
No, I'm not basing my, obviously I'd be a fool to base my thoughts on a 3-game series in St. Louis just because Bassett got hit. I was saying this 2 months ago, man. I didn't just come up with these thoughts. And again, 3 games kind of small, reinforce what I'm telling you. I didn't come up with this 3 minutes ago, Norm. I'm telling you from the off season. I told you from last year. You're playing Seattle, for God's sakes, right? Castillo shut you down in game 1. He would have beat anybody on the planet in that wild card series. Game 2, Hernandez hits 2 home runs. Your offense is rolling, and you lose the game 10-9. How'd you lose the game, Norm Rumack? By a leaky bullpen. And the only addition you made to that bullpen is a guy named Swanson, who's a 92-94, nice piece, 7th inning guy. He's a dime a dozen, man. He's a dime a dozen, believe me, right? You only got Meza as your only lefty in the bullpen, and you're bringing back the same exact guys that didn't do the job last year. You're bringing back Richards. You're bringing back Simber. You're bringing back Bass. And all these guys are the reason why you didn't beat Seattle. And you're running it back, but you decided to get rid of Hernandez and Gurriel because you figured they were the problem, that the end of the dugout was the problem. That's what Blue Jay fans thought. Meanwhile, that's a load of crap perpetrated by Atkins, Shapiro, and everybody else. I don't want to insinuate that there's racial undertones in terms of Blue Jay fans and the way they handled that. But when you see 4 Spanish guys going this way and three elder statesmen, Caucasians coming this way, that tells you all you need to know about what the Blue Jays thought what the issue was. It's no coincidence, man. But they won't say it. Nobody will say it. But that's the truth. The Blue Jays, in Atkins and Shapiro's opinion, were too Spanish to win.
But, you know, okay, I've got an open mind to what you're saying. I want to know more directly, indirectly. And that doesn't mean I doubt what you're saying. But it would seem not only ironic, but in contrast, and of course, you know, those Atkins, Shapiro weren't here in the glory days, you know, when it was Beeston and Gillick and Cito, et cetera. But, you know, Hispanic players, you go to the infancy of the Blue Jays and then into the World Series years. I mean, I'll just pick 2. Robbie Alomar, Tony Bernaz. That's just for starters. I mean, how many, you know, you look at the history of the Hispanic guys on the Blue Jays, and God rest his soul, Damaso Garcia in the early days. I mean, they've been the core and building blocks of the Blue Jay franchise.
I understand, Norm, but the perception, obviously, if this was the case, they would have sent Guerrero packing too, or they would. I'm not telling you necessarily, but what they're saying is the Blue Jays, and this is the media narrative. What is it true? I'm not in the dugout. I'm not in the clubhouse. I don't know. The media narrative that we're led to believe was the Blue Jays with the home run jackets and the antics of the barrio, and you see the same characters, Hernandez, Gurriel. And then you see those guys having too much fun and going about, sometimes even when they're losing, right? And people are rubbed the wrong way. So when you see a lot of guys having fun in that kind of way, right? the first thing you think about is they don't care. Number two, the minute they make a mistake in the outfield, you jump on them, you criticize them, you call them the worst defenders of all time. Sure, Hernandez never going to win a Gold Glove. Neither's Gurriel. But the point of the matter is, one was a 300 hitter, a perennial 300 hitter, and the other guy hit 270 with 30 and 100. Guys like that don't grow on trees, and Kiermaier's not one of those guys. Belt is not one of those guys, and I'd be shocked if Varsho's one of those guys. So you got rid of these guys, okay, fine, and you're selling, everybody's jumping around talking about the Blue Jays being a 90, 95, 98 win team. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll come on here in 4 months and gladly admit I was wrong. Gladly. You know me, Norm. I even told you about Willie, that I was wrong. I'll gladly come here and tell you that I'm wrong. But you know what? Don't hold your breath, man, because when I'm adamant about something, I might be right. Maybe.
Okay. So in terms of the guys that you pointed out that they moved, is it a greater loss in terms of their skill, or do you think their attitude? Maybe everybody didn't like it. It's like it's up to the team and the players to like. But maybe that team. Do you think that team chemistry by those moves has been damaged?
I don't know if it's damaged, but when the Blue Jays were, here's what bothers the life out of me. When the Blue Jays are rolling and they're playing good baseball, people talk about the camaraderie. They never seen a team have more fun. You hear the players, we love each other, it's a group. And the minute you lose, all of a sudden the same fun you were having is the reason why you lost. Come on. Are you serious? You can't have it both ways. For a year and a half, we're talking about the cohesion, and then when you lose against Seattle because your bullpen gave up 9, you break it up, you get rid of these guys, and you bring in guys that you consider more professional players. But here's the problem. The professional players that you're bringing in are on the downside of their career. They're on the downside. I don't care what you tell me about Kevin Kiermaier. He'd be lucky to play 80 games this year. Watch. That's his MO. That's his MO for the last 5 years. You talk about Brandon Belt, he'd be lucky to get 300 at-bats. And if you want to talk about Varsho, you come to me at the end of the year and tell me who's got better numbers, Varsho or Hernandez. If you're a Varsho guy, tell me why. Okay, the guy can field, he's versatile, but he's still a 230 hitter, 25 home runs, 70 RBIs. I don't care about WAR. I believe in the eye test. And again, to me, I don't know. Varsho's plugged into the Blue Jay lineup, and he's batting 4th at 230 guy with 25 home runs. All right, go ahead. Mesa's your only lefty. Go ahead. Yimi Garcia's your 8th inning guy. Go ahead. You want to play Kevin Kiermaier 140 games? Go ahead. Who am I to argue with you? Shapiro and Atkins.
All right. So is the greater concern, Billy, if you put it kind of like in a chopping order, like like a reverse triangle, is the bigger question and concern for the Blue Jays, not so much the guys that they moved out, but as you addressed, the bullpen need, which was obviously, first, front and center in the Seattle series, short-lived 2 games, is if you have a bone to pick, is that your number one gripe regardless of who they moved? Or are they both equal?
My number one gripe's got nothing to do with, it's got nothing to do with baseball. My number one gripe is the media and pundits paint a narrative and every tool jumps on it like it's the gospel. Oh yeah, we got better. Oh yeah. My frustration is people don't use their own mind to kind of rationalize and to look at it and to delve into what's better. Again, Alex, what's going on, brother? Nice to see you, man.
Nice to see you too. Nice to see you too, Billy. Man, listen to you ran on the Blue Jays for a while. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, well, so I don't know, Alex. Hold on, Norm. Let the 2 experts talk. Take it easy, Rumack. Go have a sip of your tea, man. Let 2 guys that actually know the game bring a little entertainment to the audience. Norm, take a little nap, okay? 5 minutes. We'll call you. We'll wake you up.
The last 2 minutes of speech, Billy, so I just woke up, but thanks.
Norm, the people miss me 2 weeks. They're worried about me. They want to hear what I got to say. Keep it down. Let me and Alex talk. So, Alex, I'll put it to you. Did the barrio, the youthful exuberance of Gurriel's, the immaturity, the perceived immaturity, was that one of the reasons? Because as I mentioned off the top, these guys happen to be in one sect, and that's at the end of the clubhouse, Spanish-speaking guys, and you brought in professional guys like Belt, Kiermaier and these other guys, like different style of players, not as flamboyant and what have you. So to me, were these guys the scapegoats, Gurriel, Hernandez? Because from where I sit, the Blue Jays didn't lose because of Teo and Lourdes. They lost because they had a bullpen that couldn't get any outs in crunch moments, and they haven't changed it this year.
Well,
but
yeah,
Gurriel and Hernandez is the problem. I don't know.
I tend to agree with you. I don't know why they got rid of Gurriel and Hernandez, especially in favor of vets, like you said, that are on the downside of their careers. To me, that those moves didn't make a lot of sense, and they didn't really improve the team. And like you guys know, I mean, I'm from Detroit, or the Detroit area, and I watched the Tigers go through this back in the heyday when Miggy was in his prime. You had Porcello, Scherzer, and Verlander all in the same rotation, and for the life of me, they could not put a bullpen and a closer together to win a series. They just couldn't do it. They had a 5-year window when they had the best rotation and one of the best lineups in baseball, and they still couldn't close the deal for this same issue of not taking care of the bullpen. That's more of a baseball management side of things. But I'll agree with you that it is somewhat curious, especially in the day and age that we're in. Where you look across every Fortune 500 company in America, and one of the greatest initiatives across the board is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And to me, it does not look good. And I mean, I'll kind of side between the two of you. I kind of agree with Norm that I'm not willing to say it was completely racially motivated, but you can't help but see the undertones when you see moves like that. I'll agree with you on that.
All right. So Alex, the point I made with Billy right off the top, let's say Billy's barking up the right tree with his concerns, and we'll see how that plays out over the course of an entire season. But let me ask you this, and Billy will agree too. We never really.
Don't be so sure, man. I haven't agreed with you in 3 years, man. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Go ahead.
Well, of course, other than my Stanley Cup predictions for the Maple Leafs the last 2 years, you agreed when I was right. But anyway, we won't dwell on that for too long. So, Alex, in terms of your perspective, okay, so the Blue Jays took a big kick in the rear end from St. Louis, but it's ridiculous. It's almost like spring training. It's so early in the season, right? So I think we have to factor that in a little bit. I've heard people say, nobody takes baseball seriously. Or actually, at the All-Star break, we know what the standings are likely to be, barring an unusual like Tampa Bay in 2008 when they came back from 13 down to the Red Sox or Yankees that year got in. But that's a once in 15 years. That happens once in a while, but that's it. So
ask your damn question, man.
No. I had my coffee break. Now I had to jump back in. But thanks anyways, Billy. But what point in time, like mid-May, late May, present, I don't know, what point in time does Alex Campbell say we've got a good read on all the teams right here, right now? What point in time would you say that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say just before the All-Star break. I mean, my take is similar, because then you can really see what a team's all about. And I think it goes farther than record too, because there are things you have to pay attention to, nuanced things inside those standings, like timely hitting. How are teams dealing with the lack of defensive shift? How are the teams dealing with the pitch clock? I mean, these are big changes in baseball, and I think it's going to expose some of the teams that were more built around the long ball, and have paid so much and are entrenched financially in that long ball investment. When now we're coming back to an era where we're going to have a lot more stolen bases. We already have, in the first 3 games for most teams, we already have stolen bases are up. Games are now 2 hours, 45 minutes on average. I mean, these are great changes for baseball, but I think these are nuanced things. And we want to see how over this, especially this first season, I think it's going to be interesting to see how this has an impact on rosters, the way that they've been built. They've been built off of a slightly different style of baseball, for the last 15 years.
Okay, so let me just add in one quick question before Billy comes back in. Do you think we're going to see some or maybe a lot of pitchers struggle with this time clock now?
I think you're going to see a lot of veteran pitchers struggle with the time clock. I worry about guys like, Chris Sale, guys that have been in the league for a long time that don't tend to have the fastest process on the mound. I think they're going to struggle the most. And I know that's obvious, but sometimes the obvious just makes the most sense.
Here's what you guys are missing when it comes to this pitch clock. Not only, obviously, there's adjustments. Old dinosaurs that are set in their ways, obviously, there's an adjustment. But you ever watch a ball game, the cleaner, the quicker the ball game is, the better the defense is. Everybody's on their toes, so you're going to get a higher quality of baseball. Usually you see In those 3.5 hour inning, 3 hour and 50-minute games, you see guys walks taking their time, games taking forever. You see defenses are not on their toes. They're shaky, and that's where mistakes happen in games like that. When you got crisp, clean games and everybody's involved and the pitches are coming in a rapid fashion within the 15-second time frame, you're going to see less errors. You're going to see better D, and you're going to see better quality of baseball. Just the tempo alone. Don't you see guys, and you see it on TV, guys that throw strikes and work quickly. We've heard announcers, and as you know, Alex, I'm a baseball skipper here, man. I'm not chopped liver, man. Coach the East York Bulldogs. The quicker your guy works, the more strikes he throws, what happens? Your defense is involved, the game goes quicker, and you're in every pitch. So you're going to see at the end of the year, and I guarantee you this, go take a look at the errors in games. You're going to see them dwindle by as much as the stolen bases are going to increase by 40%. The errors are going to decrease by 30%. Come check me at the end of the year. That makes for better baseball.
No, I agree with you that it's better baseball. These are changes baseball should have made 10, 15 years ago. This is better baseball. And the next one I have is shorten the season. I mean, you can make the game so much better with just a few simple changes. These are some of them, and then not trying to compete in the ratings against football when your games matter is another change you could probably make to really cement that next TV deal that's coming up in 3 years. You know what I mean? There are some steps that can be made here, and I think we can go further to a better entertainment product and a better baseball.
Hold on now, Alex. If I'm an owner, you want to get me from what, 162 to 148 to maybe 144. You know what you're doing, Alex. Number one, baseball is a game full of numbers, right? The whole record books and all the numbers and it was a big deal to go from 154 to 162. We're talking about Roger Maris and asterisks and all that kind of stuff, right? But if you're an owner, man, you want to take 18 games out of my pocket, man. That's about 18,000 hot dogs a day I'm selling, right? But
if you look at the ratings right now, Billy, we're at risk of taking $18 million to $18 billion out of your pocket if you don't land the next TV deal, and you're not on track to do that yet.
Yeah,
so that's the bigger problem. That's the bigger problem. You're going to go from a multinational, broadcast booths product all the way down to Nesson if you're not careful here. So, good luck. You have to get the fans watching again, and the pitch clock is a way to do that. The bigger base is the way to do that. Eliminating the defensive shift, and by God, shortening the season would go a long, long way. Yeah. The NBA is guilty of it too. The playoffs would be more valuable. Has the NFL taught us nothing other than the scarcity of the sport brings dollars? Scarcity brings dollars. Not caring about games for 3 months doesn't make money.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd go ahead, Norm, jump in there, and then I'll respond to that.
Okay. So, Alex, just let me go up to take you out to left field a little bit. So, with the vast improvement last year, especially in the Baltimore Orioles, Tampa Bay always competes. It already, means nothing maybe, but 3-0 start. They're always in it. They do it miraculously with their scouting, player development, on a relatively speaking minuscule third or fifth from the bottom budget. So having said that, if Boston can improve on a horrific season for them last year, is there a potential that this AL East this year could be, if everybody's playing optimally and nobody's devastated by a ton of injuries, if all teams are kind of on the same foot that way, could we see like top to bottom AL East, like a 4 or 5 game difference top to bottom?
I don't think it's that tight. I really don't. When they hired Hein Bloom in Boston, I thought it was an odd decision. That doesn't scream Boston baseball to me. Dave Dombrowski screams Boston baseball. Show me the checkbook, I'll write the check. You know what I mean? To me, penny pinching and trying to do the Rays game in Boston in a giant market where the owner doesn't mind spending for the championships. I just have never understood that. I thought it was a clunky fit from the beginning, and I don't ultimately believe that it ends all that well. Look at Xander Bogaerts is already tearing it up right now elsewhere. You know what I mean? Like just immediately. Last night he went 2 for 3 with a home run. You don't have that offensive production on your team, and you didn't do much to replace it. It's similar to the Blue Jays in a way. You got the local media saying, they've improved the team. How have they improved the team? Well, Chris Sale's going to be healthy. Well, I mean, for the next 5 minutes, or is he going to be healthy all season? I don't know. And I think the next 5 minutes is more likely, and so I don't think that the Red Sox are going to be within 5 games of the leader. No, I don't. The other 3 teams, I have faith of a steady mix. I do think it'll be tighter between those, but I do see the Yankees probably winning because they just have the most firepower. And
here's the issue.
Yeah,
Alex, here's the issue. Sorry to interrupt, but here's the issue when you talk about New York baseball as opposed to what goes on in Toronto and Tampa Bay for that matter. Tampa Bay's a little closer to New York in this respect. When you look at the Blue Jays last year, you were relatively and surprisingly, forget about Springer. He's going to get hurt, guaranteed. Springer's going to play 125 over under, and if you took the over, you're crossing your fingers. Kiermaier, the same thing. So there's certain guys on the Blue Jays that are fragile. But when you look at Barrios, Manoah, and Gosman, you expect 100 starts there, right? History tells you those guys have been reliable in terms of their durability to give you 100 starts, which is important and critical. Even though Barrios shit the bed last year, you're getting 100 between the 3 guys, right? If, knock on wood, you don't get 100, say out of those 3 you get, I don't know, 65, 70, 72. Injuries happen even to guys that you consider. Then what happens to the Blue Jays? Whereas the Yankees, you've seen the Yankees win. They go a whole season without Severino. They go a whole season with guys, with King going down, with other guys going down, and somebody steps up. So for me, the biggest edge the Yankees have is their depth and ability to be able to handle injuries. You see Stanton go down for periods of time. You see everybody in those pinstripes spend elongated portions of the year on the DL, whereas the Blue Jays are healthy as can be. Vlad goes down, Manoah goes, you know what? They turn from a 90-win team into a 65 in a blink of an eye, whereas the Yankees can withstand any injury and still, no matter what happens in New York, they win 90 games no matter what. Case closed. Even if the sky falls, they win 90. Can't say the same thing for the Blue Jays.
Yeah, and that's why I say they're going to win the division. You're right. The Blue Jays will have to stay healthy, but to your other point, they've historically been able to stay healthy. Their nucleus has historically been able to stay healthy. The Rays have been able to get it done in a myriad of ways, both with electric young talent and without that electric talent. It seems the Rays just always find a way to be within 5-10 games of the leader. And I'm no longer going to doubt them, no matter what the team looks like going into the season.
Yeah. Well, okay. Very well said. Okay, so. From your point of view, Alex, let's just, beyond the AL East, is there any team, well, in fact, we can go to the National League as well, especially with the intertwining games now, just a regular part of the schedule, which I think a lot of fans are glad for. But is there any team maybe below the radar in the American League, National League, and maybe we're not talking about or thinking about that much that you think we should keep our eyes on, like, look out, these guys might surprise you this year?
Well, I don't know about surprises, but I just don't think a lot of people are still talking about the Padres and the moves they did in the offseason and the fact that they already had a loaded roster. You know what I mean? I think the Padres coming out of the NL and out west are going to be phenomenal. And I think they're going to surprise a lot of people because they still don't have them on their radar. Not because they should have been under the radar already. They probably should have been on the radar anyways. But to me, the Padres of that team, that's, obviously where Bogarts went. And, yeah, I mean, that's really one I would highlight. And I think too, it's really early, right? Because we just don't know. And that speaks to the other point where, these first couple months in baseball just historically don't really matter. I mean, you can notice some trends, but at the same time, like what happens in this next 60 days, you can recover from anything, and you can also have a pitfall. You're more likely to even have a pitfall off of any successes you have in these first 60 days too. So the standings can flip flop after this first 60 to 90 days in the league.
I got a good one for you. You know what? Honest to God, I do this, Alex. As you see, I don't have an earpiece. I don't have a script. I'm just natural, baby. Naturally beautiful, articulate. So I got a good one for you. Just came up with this. Bigger disappointment, right? Let's go with last year. Bigger disappointment, or Trout and Ohtani, or Kyrie and Luka.
Kyrie and Luka have to be the bigger disappointment. I mean, look, you were fourth in the standings in the West before you got him. You traded away the 3 best defensive pieces to get him. You brought in somebody who can't play defense, and now you're out of the play-in. You've lost 8 straight. You've lost 10 out of the last 12. I mean, it's abysmal. And the worst part is most general managers in the NBA could have predicted this. You know what I mean? And
did you see it coming like this?
that is, to me, I thought, here's what I thought when they got Kyrie. I don't know how much it's going to help the win column. I kind of thought they would stay where they were. I was a little bit wrong about that. I didn't think they would fall off this fast. But at the same time, you're talking about two ball dominant players who are now we're finding out over time that Luka's a little dramatic and a little bit difficult to play with. Not maybe to the level of Kyrie, but we already know Kyrie's dramatic and difficult to play with. And so now you're combining those two. And here's the other thing. I think they're of two different categories, really. Luka is a great basketball player. Kyrie is a great offensive talent. He's not a great basketball player, in my opinion. He's not. I think he's way overvalued in the NBA, has been for a long time. I think you can look at any stage of his career and say that. Look, he played 8 games at Duke. And then was the number 1 pick. 8 games. That's all we saw him for. And then he was mostly seen as a bust until he got to play with LeBron. And then all he plays with LeBron and like, oh, he's so great. And then he blows up the locker room in Boston. Just really dismantles the team, basically goes to the Nets. They can't win even with Kevin Durant on his side. They really can't win consistently. There's certainly not any big moments. And now within a month and a half, he has completely tanked the Mavericks with arguably the best young player in the NBA on the team.
I gotta admit, man, that one, those two against Charlotte hurt a little bit, man. You can't, if you lose back to back against that club that's doing everything in their power for the French guy, right? You can't beat that Charlotte club. You got issues. Anyways, before Norm gets in, let's switch to the Eastern Conference. A couple of Raptor fans up here watch the program every now and then. All right, so I'm gonna ask it to you this way. We're not gonna get into Nick Nurse and his job next year and what have you. We'll leave that for another time. We got Chicago, we got Atlanta. You got the Bulls and you got the Raptors. Which of those 4 clubs, in your estimation, is the most likely of the 4 to cause some grief in terms of the 4 clubs that are in the upper echelon? Yeah. Talking about obviously Philly, Boston, Milwaukee, and Cleveland as a obvious 4th, right?
Yeah. Of that group of 4, I like the Bulls the most. Unfortunately, I know you got a lot of Raptors fans, but the Bulls the most make some noise because I still love the makeup of their roster. I mean, when you have Levine, and you still have an aging but really good Nikola Vucevic, Pat Beverly, who I like a lot, and then DeMar DeRozan, who's as productive as he's ever been, this mid-range magician. I just really like the Bulls' makeup. They can play tough defense on the perimeter, and I think that's going to have a big impact in the playoffs. And they can really hurt a team, especially a team that isn't consistent throughout, especially on the defensive end. You look at a team like Philadelphia, who isn't the most defensively strong team. I think they could give Philadelphia fits. Boston's probably a little bit too deep. I think they could give Milwaukee fits to a certain extent because they're a little younger and a little bouncier than Milwaukee. And historically, if you look at Milwaukee, Milwaukee is the oldest team in the league. Yeah. Is the oldest team in the league. And that's why, for instance, like Boston has their number. That's why if they go up at a 7-game series against Boston, the Celtics will win. And it's not because necessarily they're the better team. They're deeper, but more than that, they're younger, they're bouncier, they're going to get to the line more. Whereas outside of Giannis, Milwaukee is mostly going to settle for jump shots in a lot of ways. They're not great on the defensive end. And guys, look at Tatum and Brown both average close to or over 30 points a game against, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I know it's true, over 30 points a game against Milwaukee. And that's for that reason, because they struggle against the exact type of prototypical good NBA player we have in today's game, that wing player that can shoot the 3 and drive the lane and play good perimeter defense. And that's, kind of how the Bulls are made, maybe just a lesser product than the Celtics.
All right. Our great guest, Alex Campbell, encyclopedic in his knowledge of all sports. So Alex, as a Michigan guy, right? Hey. And, fair to say, a neutral observer of the Toronto Raptors. Is this the summer, as I think a lot of Raptor fans are thinking this now, barring something unusually unexpected in a pleasant way in the playoffs, is this the summer where Masai Ujiri has to make some big moves? I mean, the Raptors got a lot of likable, good players, but, God bless him, the late Punch Imlach when he was taking the Maple Leafs to 4 Stanley Cups. I know it's a long time ago, but he had a great expression. You can lose with anybody. So why not make a trade or a bunch of trades to get guys who you think or hope can take you to a title? So Masai, I wouldn't say blow it up, but does he have to put on his, dancing shoes, sharpen a pencil, say, hey, we gotta make some big moves here?
Yeah, I think so, because I just don't know how much longer guys like Van Vliet and Siakam have a lot of value on the open market. And so, I mean, especially in the case of Siakam, is regressed pretty significantly since his days with Kawhi. I think that maybe they were holding out hope that another superstar would be attracted to the rest of that core of that team the same way Kawhi was, hopefully for longer than a couple years. But that just never came to fruition. And so now you've got a system where you're still in need of that guy, and you're winning too many games to draft that guy, and you're taking up too much of the salary to sign that guy. So the only option then would be to get rid of some of those bigger stars, especially when they still have some value left.
Hold on, Alex. You watch a lot of sports. You're obviously well versed. Let's take a little trip through recent history. You take a look at the Raptors. I'm telling you, I got a funny feeling with this club. Like when you look at them over the last little while, you're very competitive in Milwaukee. You played Denver to the final buzzer. Everybody you played other than a game, probably even the Bucks, you played everybody tight. And that club, when you're talking about wing guys that can defend, guys that can score, you're talking about guys like Barnes, Anunoby, Siakam. Those are prototypical NBA players, right? Yeah. Obviously, a lot rests on the shoulder of Van Fleet and what have you. But I'm telling you, do not be surprised the Raptors can beat, especially if the Raptors play the Sixers. I'm telling you, especially if what's his name, the center, the white guy. For the Raptors. Traded him from San Antonio. Joel Petit, what's his name? God damn it.
Poeltl. Jacob Poeltl.
All right, Poeltl. How do you get Poeltl out of the way they spell his last name? That's a mystery to me. I don't know. But if he can somehow hold Embiid like turn back the clock to how Gasol competed back then against the Sixers, held Embiid down a little bit. Yeah. Do not be surprised. Toronto can beat the Sixers. They can hang kind of with the Bucks. But I believe that the Celtics are a notch above every team in the Eastern Conference, including Milwaukee, including Chicago. But don't be surprised if the Raptors scare some people. It wouldn't shock me at all. Because if you look at the club on paper, if you like the Bulls, right, for those specific reasons, take a look at the Raptors on paper, right? Obviously, maybe out of the 11 guys on the court, maybe Levine's the best player there out of those two squads, right? But on any given day, Siakam can be lights out. Can Siakam be lights out for 7 games? You bet your sweet ass he can, right? Same with Anunoby, same with Barnes and Van Fleet. We've seen him in clutch time, winning a chip a few years ago, man. He can somehow find it and put up 40, man, before you know it, right? So, Alex, do not sleep on the Raptors. I'm telling you, Alex, we're going to have this conversation maybe in a month from now. You say, holy shit, that Greek man, not only is he a handsome, smooth individual, man, he knows his shit, man. Raptors to make the NBA Eastern Conference Finals. How's that?
Conference Finals. All right. Yeah. I don't know. We'll talk about the wager afterwards, but I'll take that one. I'll take that one.
Yeah. I need odds though. Eh? I need some odds.
Well, I don't have them at my fingertips. We'll figure some out.
All right, shoot me. You know what? Right off the cuff, shoot me 20-1, man, and it's a handshake for a cup of coffee.
Deal.
20-1.
Deal.
All right.
All right.
Alex, last week or last 2 weeks, you and I talked about the Western Conference and how, whether, let's say, Denver, for example, not the only team, but don't be sleeping not only on Golden State, but not even on the LA Lakers because of what LeBron can do single-handedly, and Raptor fans know that better than anybody. But having said that, Phoenix Suns had their hearts broken a couple of years ago, and they've unfortunately had bad timing with injuries. But, they've got, I think, that's a great tandem of guards they've got if they stay healthy. How dangerous, if they can stay healthy, are the Phoenix Suns in the Western Conference playoffs?
Well, after the Durant signing, I think the Suns became, and if you look, they've won 9 straight now. And Durant looks like this plug and play option that can work on any team. You know what I mean? And that's become kind of his MO, right? I mean, the only thing sane about the Brooklyn Nets was Kevin Durant. I mean, really, there was the only thing functioning steady on a normal, basis. The roster was revolving door. Kyrie's was a revolving door, whether he was going to play or not. But, consistently, Durant was there. Durant was scoring at a Durant level, and I think he's going to continue to do that. Look, you've got one of the, I would argue, 12th greatest players of all time on your team. That's going to help. that's ultimately going to help. And I think they're a true threat. I would say them and the Nuggets have the best chance to win the Western Conference. But I'll say this: it's over that time stretch that we've been talking about them, the Lakers have turned a 180 on the season, and in one very specific way. Anthony Davis has really turned back the clock. It took 4 years in LA to see this Anthony Davis, but he's been here. It looks like he's here for this stretch run. And if he can do that and allow LeBron to not come off the bench, but get out of the rotation and only play limited minutes like he has, and be the facilitator instead of the primary scoring option, to me, that is unlocking everything that you need to in LeBron right now at this era of his stage of his career. To have another primary scoring option on the floor, let him be the facilitator, but somebody who can also, be that scoring option if need be, say, with another lineup or in rotation. It just works perfectly. And then they've also got a young star emerging now too. So the Lakers, to me, are an extreme threat. How can you doubt LeBron James in a 7-game series against anyone here? And I've got a pretty bold prediction. If they end up matching up with the Nuggets in round 1, I bet you the Lakers take that series, not because they're the better team, but because they're peaking at the right time with the two of the biggest superstars in the game that are better than anyone on that Nuggets roster this side of Jokic. So
the only problem with that, Alex, you know what's the only problem with that? Unfortunately, I'd agree with you. If LeBron went down, I'd like the Lakers even a little bit more. They seem to have played better with him, without him on the court. Without him any part of that thing, I think the Lakers got a better chance if LeBron's waving a towel on the sidelines, trying to look good. For me, every time he comes on the court, I think the quality of the basketball goes down. I think the ball stops, and sooner or later, the ball ends up being in LeBron's hands way more than it should, even though you don't want it. You're asking him to be a facilitator, but that's not the way that guy's built. No matter what happens, close to the end of the games, he's going to try to take games over. He's going to try to be there. He's going to try to get off 25, 30 shots, and it's going to be the same story for me. I would love to see the time where LeBron just kind of, twist your ankle, pal. We don't want a big injury. Nothing serious, man. Just twist your ankle and go away. Anyways, we got about 8 minutes left. So the first question I'm going to ask you is finish this sentence for me. San Diego State wins
if they can hold UConn under 30 in the first half. I think if they can shock them on the defensive end and turn it into an all-out rock fight, I think they have a chance. If they do, I don't care if it's 36-34. If they let that thing go over 30 in the first half, that means UConn has dictated the offense, dictated the San Diego State defense, and that's a wrap. The only way they have a chance. I've heard a lot of people say there's no blue bloods. This Final Four has no blue blood. Are you kidding me? UConn has won 4 national titles since 1999, and if they close this one out, they'll have their 5th. And that's with 3 different coaches. I mean, that is as much of a powerhouse as there is in college basketball. I mean, have they had their ups and downs? Sure. But at the end of the day, they've been more up than more down. And again, they've won more championships than anyone else. And they're a deep roster. There's no great team in college basketball this year. They're a very, very good team. And they're bigger, faster, and stronger than San Diego State pretty much across the board.
All right. So hang on. Let me extrapolate on that a little bit.
Extrapolate, Norm.
I know that's but thanks to me, that's become Billy's favorite word. So you owe me a big thanks for that, Billy. But anyway, you can thank me later. Anyway, in all seriousness, Alex, that blue-blooded legacy of UConn, and as a Syracuse alum, they used to torment the living crap out of us all the time, right? Because they were UConn. It was Coach Calhoun, the legend back then. But how much of that blue-blooded history, and they know their history, and there is a certain kind of, way. There's a UConn Husky way. I don't know exactly what it is, but the record speaks for itself, as you so correctly highlighted. How much of that confidence and knowledge of where they've come from and what their history is plays a part in their confidence going into the game, or do you think I'm barking up the wrong tree?
No, I think you are, because this team in specific, and like all the other blue blood type teams, and they actually are been battle tested this year. This isn't a UConn that's gone 32-3 or anything like that. They've struggled a little bit here and there. They started the season unranked. You know what I mean? They weren't predicted to be in this position. I think in all people's estimation, they're here not even 1, but maybe even 2 years early. they've got another great recruiting class coming in after this. They should be even better. But they've kind of beat the odds, but they've struggled a little bit. So I think that, when you're like the Duke and you've had an almost undefeated season, let's say you lost two games or something like that, and it's been by a buzzer beater or something, and then you enter the tournament, you can kind of rest on laurels a little bit. You know what I mean? We're Duke and we're more talented than every team we face. That's not really this UConn team. They've been up and down the rankings all season. They've been battle tested. They've lost games they probably shouldn't have. They've won games they probably shouldn't have. But since the tournament started, they've been the most dominant team. They're averaging double-digit victories against everyone.
Alex, how's your bracket, buddy?
Terrible.
Hey? What do you think? You're not alive? I'm the only guy here that's alive with the finalists.
The only team of the Final Four I had in it was UConn, and I already had them losing in mind, so I'm done.
Man. You know what? Even though I don't want to really toot my own horn, I did have UConn, San Diego State, but I don't want to really get into that. We'll save that for another time. Yeah, sure, I did. Here's the question I'm gonna pose to you. Obviously, I grew up in a different time, probably well before you. How old are you? Mid-20s?
I'm 37.
What the hell? You look like young as a tiger, man. Good for you. I still got about 11 on you. So I grew up in the prime. I'm talking the prime Georgetown Hoya days, man. I'm talking about Ewing, Perry McDonald, Reggie Williams, you name it, and then go on to Chris Jackson, Mark Tillman, Jaren Jackson. So I'm a Hoya guy through and through. How long? First of all, do you like the hire of Ed Cooley? And how long before a guy like that can put Georgetown back on some map? And will we ever see a day within the next decade where we see UConn in the final, right? And is there any possibility, in your estimation, Washington, D.C. is a breeding ground of talent in terms of basketball? How does Cooley keep guys local? And can he get Georgetown back on the map within the foreseeable future?
I think so. You look at his track record at Providence in really the same backyard. Right here on the Eastern Seaboard. I absolutely he was. If you're able to do it at a school like Providence, I would assume that you're at a bigger, stronger program. You're historically going to be able to do it at Georgetown. I would give it maybe 2-3 years. You got to give him a chance at getting his guys in there. You got to give him a chance to work the transfer portal for a couple years. And this is a tough landscape, but specifically Cooley, especially at a smaller school, I got to admire these kind of guys so much that are able to. I actually listened to an interview with Coach K earlier today, and one of the things he said is that, they talked a lot about when the NBA changed the rule and we went to the one and done era with a lot of these 5-star recruits. He's like, and if you look across the national landscape, you had maybe 100, 200 one and dones a year at most that were only considering playing 1 year in college. He goes, now you got to kind of look at it like there are 1,800 because of the transfer portal. You got to kind of look at it like, there are 1,800 to 2,000 of those kids every single year. And so my thing is what he was able to do at Providence, for 12 years was just absolutely remarkable. I mean, they've been consistently in the tournament. He really rebuilt a program, and they're in good footing now, made the tournament again this year. So, yeah, I think that was a great hire, and I'd say 2 to 3 years. And I think as far as a leash, even if they struggle, I think you got to give them like 4 to 5, because I don't think you can see it before then, based on where the team was before he got there.
Okay, I'm just going to pick up one more point. Alex, you know this better than I do, but I could have sworn it was a while back. I know some Georgetown alums, and I can't remember which one I was speaking to. It may have been Junkyard Dog or somebody else, but I got the impression, maybe it was from somebody who didn't go to Georgetown, that maybe there's been this long drought since the, God rest his soul, John Thompson senior days, that maybe the drop-off with the Hoyas on the basketball court, is it possible, and they're a Jesuit school, and I mean that Jesuit schools are pretty serious about their academics. You can't fool around there, right? Yeah. That's a pretty, and they're well known for their school for folks who want to work in diplomacy and foreign relations, right? They graduate some of the biggest and the best in that field. But is it possible, even though people may laugh, say, what, that academic standards were raised somewhat, and maybe in terms of, like a lot of schools, let's face it, you can if you can get an elite athlete, maybe doesn't have the highest grades or the grades that the school usually requires, sometimes they find a way to get them in with tutors or otherwise. Is it possible, or am I completely in the wrong direction, that maybe they had raised their academic standards in general at Georgetown, or am I completely wrong on that?
It's possible, but I don't really know. I mean, I'm in your camp that I don't know whether they have or not. I think it's more to do with the absence of John Thompson Sr. Than anything else. I think you're going to see, for instance, I think you'll see a similar cratering with Michigan State once Tom Izzo leaves. For good. Those guys. And Coach K to an extent. I don't know how good Schreiber is going to be. We'll see. But those guys that have that kind of impact, it's historically, like, you just look across the landscape and history of sports, it is so hard to replace those guys. I mean, it really craters a program when those kind of guys leave, and not even just leave the actual coaching office, when they pass and leave the impact that they had on the entire program, just as a being, like, you look at Michigan, and I think when Bo Schembechler passed, actually was a springboard for that team, and having a former Michigan Schembechler recruit and Harbaugh as the coach was a springboard for that. You're not always in those shoes and in that spot. And I think it's tough. It's tough to move on from a guy like that. And like I said, it's to me is very similar to, whether it's Ariema or Coach K or any of these great long-term, 40, 50-year basketball coach careers. I think it's hard to move on from that. And I really, to be honest, I really, really admire those guys that end up being lifers at a program. I think, it's so much easier to be a John Calipari or Rick Pitino.
Yeah, all those guys. Like when you talk about recruits, obviously tendencies to go. At one point in Georgetown's history, it had the cachet like none other. We're talking about Georgetown, North Carolina, right? It turned on a lot of pros. Things have obviously changed. There was the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest athlete that ever, top 10 greatest athletes that ever lived. But we'll leave that for another time. Here's what I'm going to tell you, that for a lot of people that are too young to remember, Big East basketball once upon a time was bigger than the NBA, was crazier than the NBA, was better basketball. Anyways, we'll leave that for another subject, Alex. You know what? If it was just me and you, man, and we didn't have Rumack interrupting us, man, we could get in a lot of topics. So I'm gonna finish off with the last one for you.
Who went to Syracuse University? Speaking of the Big East,
Norm,
thank you.
Keep it down, Norm. Keep it down, Norm. Yeah, again, man.
Iverson. So there.
I don't want to threaten you with your job security, Norm. So we'll just keep it down
I'm
for the
Greek. Call Allen Iverson in that case.
All right, betting man. You're a betting man now. Do you take the Boston Bruins or the field for a Stanley Cup victory?
Yeah. I got to take the Bruins. They're just so loaded with the two goaltenders they have. I got to take the Bruins. They just won their 60th game. I mean, they're up there with teams like the 95 Red Wings. You know what I mean? Like, this is an incredible team. And
here's the problem. Hold on, Alex. Hold on, Alex. Before you go a little further, let me tell you something. Let me warn you and all Bruins fans, right? When you're going into the playoffs, no matter if you're in the NBA, NFL, no matter where you are, the playoffs require you to take your game to a next level, right? Yeah. You got to raise the level of your game, no matter who you are. Does Boston even have another gear, man, to raise their game? Can Boston possibly get any better, right? Does it really matter? Or do you think they can just stay where they are? Because if you look back at the beginning of the year with the incident with the signing of that kid with the dubious past, the uncertainty with Bergeron, Boston was nobody's pick to win a Stanley Cup, right? If you look back at the beginning of the year, Boston was one of those clubs that we thought might fall out of the Eastern Conference playoff race, right? All right, 80 games later, they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. You remember Tampa Bay when they had a similar record? What happened to them against Columbus? Swept in 4. I'm not telling you Boston's going to get swept, but I would be very leery of a monumental upset in the first round, especially if they – all right, I'll ask you this. Beginning of the year, who'd you have, Florida or Boston?
I had Boston at the beginning of the year. I really did. I really did. I like
Yeah.
I like Swayman a lot. I like Jamie Swayman a lot. I like Ullman a lot. I'm really big on goaltenders. I go back. My hockey fandom goes back to that exact time, the mid '90s Red Wings, who always had two solid goaltenders. And in any era, you look at that really 10-year stretch where they're the best team in hockey. They always had two solid goaltenders. I love that setup where if one guy starts to struggle, you can throw in another one. You know what I mean? And you don't have a drop off in talent. I really love the two goaltenders setup, and I think that goes farther than a lot of teams have. And I've been higher on Swayman for a long time than a lot of other people.
All right. Okay. So on that happy note, Alice Campbell, it's been great to have you on. It always is. You helped me a lot in when Billy was off. Mourning his mother's loss, of course. So you're as good a guest as we've ever had, pretty much, Alex. And it's not a sport you can't answer to. So good for you, and it's great for us. That's for sure. So thank you so much for helping us out as much as you do.
Well, thank you for having me, man. I always enjoy it and have a blast every time.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure seeing you, Alex. Absolutely. It's always nice to shoot the breeze. And again, man, we'll talk off there. Maybe you see the old guy up there. He's a little long in the tooth, and it's his days are coming to an end, and so we might have a talk off there, like in the not too distant future when we put Rumack out to the pasture.
I just want to get to the level where I can give you guys the same hard time you give each other, and I can feel comfortable doing it. I just want to get to that level. That's all.
Well, I think you're at a very good level already. But thanks so much. And, of course, we got to thank our great sponsors, COSA, Standardbred Horse Racing Association of Ontario, and Nikki, the king of carpets. Go Habs go for Nikki. Well, maybe not. Yeah, maybe they'll go and get the lottery pick. Maybe that's where they're going to go Habs go. And wouldn't they be happy with that, eh? All right, well, we'll see what happens. So a long way to go before we get to the NHL draft in June. And Billy, I know we like to trade shots like it's a 15-round match, but in all seriousness, great to see you back, my friend.
Yeah. Actually, as we're saying ahead of the show, for those of you that reached out, I appreciate each and every one of you very much, whether I knew you for a minute or a lifetime, or we've never met, or I just look at you through Facebook and social media, and we shoot the breeze once in a while. Every little comment matters, and at times in life when they're difficult, when isolation, pity, and all those things become a problem, it always helps to lean on somebody. And you know what? You can make a difference in a life that you don't even know the person, just by a message, just by a thought, just by taking a little time to share, right? And that's kind of, I forget that sometimes. The only times we come together in life sometimes is through extreme tears, right? And then we just take a lot of the other stuff for granted. I've seen a lot of people that I haven't seen in a lifetime, and I've chimed in with them, and it was kind of, I don't know, like you learn something when you go through this. Your perspective changes, but the only difficulty is eventually it kind of stays the same, right? And that's the problem. Consistency, appreciating consistency, taking time out of your day consistently to reach out to people, to connect with people, and to get out of your own heads, get out of your selfish routines, and touch a person anyways. And I'm not talking, Norm, get your head out of the gutter. I'm not talking about touch a person at those titty bars you used to go to. I'm talking about touch a person emotionally, go out of your way, do something nice for somebody else, man. And at the end of the day, I believe that when you talk about lives well lived, that's what they're talking about. Not what you did for yourself and your own and your own journey, but how you touched others, right? And it's kind of unless you're thinking about it, it's hard to kind of do so. I'll just leave it with that. Norm, it was a real pleasure. Thank you so much. Alex, we'll see you again. All right. And for those of you watching either now or tape delay, we really appreciate you having you around. And I really do. I don't know about Rumack, but I really appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate everybody. And Billy, too.
You just appreciate COSA because they put money in your pocket, man. You don't give a rat's ass about the people, Norm, especially the Maple Leaf fans. You're a turncoat. You've given up on the Leafs. All you do is talk about Chelsea. We went through an hour and you didn't even talk about the Leafs once. You don't give a rat's ass about the people, Rumack.
Actually, you know who really likes me on our show is none other the head of Leafs Nation, Mr. James Foley. So thank you, James, for agreeing with me on so many things I say about the Leafs and politics. and everything else. And by the way, Billy, those nice men's adult entertainment nightclubs that sponsored me, I had a very nice relationship with all the nice ladies there. And I used to talk to them and listen to them. So I spent quality time.
You're the only guy, I'll tell you this, man, from what I'm heard, man, you're the only guy that goes into one of those adult establishments with a pocket full of quarters, man. And we'll leave it at that.
Who said it? Who said I even needed quarters?
Man, let's leave it for another episode. Jordan's on the rush. We got to get going. See you guys again next week. What a pleasure, man. Bye, Alex.
Adios.
Thanks, folks.